Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Pave the Way. I wanted to take a minute and thank all y'all for liking and subscribing to our videos. On this week's episode, we got James Kelly. James Kelly is a local business owner and he's the mayor of the great city of Dallas. So I hope y'all enjoy this and let's get to it.
James, thank you for coming, man. We're so excited to have you, and we're just honored to have you on the show. So thank you so much for being
Hey, I
here.
appreciate y'all asking me to come. I feel an honor and privilege to be here.
Well, we really thank you for being here today. I guess tell the audience a little bit. We know a lot about your story, but tell the audience a little bit about your childhood, kind of being brought up in our county, and just start with that, if you would.
Well, again, like I said, James Kelly, born and raised right here in Paulding County. Grew up here my whole life. Born in '68, went to Hiram Elementary. I think at the time there was 5 elementary schools in the county, one middle school, which is Herschel Jones Middle School, and one high school, which is Paulding County High School. So I graduated at Paulding County High School in 1986. Like I said, like back when it was just we were a one high school county, maybe 2 red lights in the whole county.
Man,
So
It's hard to imagine.
That's hard to
the early
imagine.
days.
Yeah, that's amazing to see that happen in your generation, like just in your lifetime, to see that
I
expansion.
couldn't say specifically, but the county might have been around 30,000. It might not even been 30,000 residents in the county at that time back in the 80s. And now here we are right at 200,000.
Wow.
30 years later.
Nope.
So now I'm telling my age.
It was like those years in the early 2000s where it was like the fastest growing county.
Yeah.
Was it 2 years or 1 year?
I can't remember. At one time, it was the fastest growing county in the state, 7th or 14th in the country. I don't know specifically.
Yeah, but it was up there.
It was way up in the early 2000s, and then of course we had the recession that hit in 08 and 09, and everything plummeted in. But
Yeah.
at one point, it was the fastest in the state, and then also really up probably the top 15, 20 in the nation. So
That's amazing.
I love it.
So seeing that growth growing up as a kid in high school, middle school, were you into sports? What were you in as a kid? What kind of hobbies did you have as a kid?
shoot, all I cared about in high school was sports and girls.
I can relate.
But no, I grew up as a young kid. I mean, I started playing football when I was 5 years old, and that was probably the best thing in the world for me because I loved it. And anything that had a ball, I was chasing it, whether it was a football, a basketball, a baseball, a golf ball. Didn't really care too much for tennis, but I never was the type that wanted to go out there, and I wasn't a runner. I hated long distance runs.
Yeah, that was always punishment in
Yeah.
my
In
sport.
high school and sports, if your coach said run a lap, give me a lap, or
Yep.
you got to run a mile in under 6 minutes, I'm like, oh gosh, I hate this.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
so cool.
But so yeah, I played all the sports, and I mean that was my passion. I always thought, when people ask you, well, what are you going to do for a living? What do you want to be when you grow up? And of course, when I was young, I want to be an athlete. Because I love sports so much. But of course, that didn't happen, and the chances of that happening are slim to none for people.
Yeah.
But I really, really thought I'd become a coach. I mean, that was really where my passion was. I wanted to be, go become a high school football coach college, or wherever it took me from there. So that's where I thought my road or my career or future was going to head after high school.
Oh wow. And where did your path go at? So you graduate high school. I know I actually saw Kevin's yearbook, so I know you're a pretty decorated athlete.
Yeah.
I think you're most athletic, maybe.
Yeah, I was in high
Mr.
school.
PCHS.
No. I did get the senior superlative of most athletic.
That's awesome.
In 1986. But that was back when, I was also voted, you know how they do the superlatives.
Yeah.
They did the funny superlatives, and they gave me the superlative of the most person in need of an attitude adjustment. Who's most likely to wind up in jail,
Yeah.
who's most likely to be arrested for drugs, and all these crazy, funny superlatives. And I was the one most likely to need an attitude adjustment.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
don't.
glad they got rid of that by 2012.
Yeah. So
He would have got it.
you know, I thought it was funny at the time, but now I look back and I was like, gosh, man, I was just a punk.
Yeah.
You
Just
know,
a jock.
So in high school, what I thought I was going to be or become and how life was going to be it's totally different now.
Yeah. Where did you go from high school?
Well, when I graduated high school, all my buddies were going to West Georgia. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go to West Georgia. So I went to West Georgia there, and what I started realizing is, gosh, man, this is just another continuation of my senior year. I'm not really accomplishing nothing. I don't know why I'm here. I'm wasting my money. So I went one quarter there, and then I had a cousin of mine that was, he was going to a junior college up in Rexburg, Idaho. It's a Mormon college for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was a junior college, and he was up there, and I kind of hit this crossroads in my life where, I'm realizing I'm out of high school. Life ain't about fun and games anymore. It's time to grow up and figure out what I'm going to do with myself. Yeah. And that's when I realized, being at West Georgia, hanging out with my buddies all the time, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't accomplishing nothing. So I came back, and then my cousin, who was going to Rick's College up in Rexburg, Idaho, he says, man, why don't you come up here? And it was a church school that, I was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as the Mormons. And so I thought, you know what, this would be a good experience. I've never been out of Georgia, really. So now I'm going to go to the other side of the country, up at the top north corner of the United States in Idaho. So I went up there, first time away from home. That was a unique experience. The winters there are a lot different than they are here.
A little colder.
And I was there the winter semester, and I'm thinking, what in the world have I got myself into? And so that was another eye opener. My first time away from home, being on my own, and not having the support of mom and dad, and I was like, man, I hate the snow, I hate this winter. I'm a little homesick. I had a girlfriend that we'd been girlfriends, a boyfriend and girlfriend all through high school. I was like, man, this is not my cup of tea either. Mm-hmm. And so I was searching for something, but I just couldn't find it. So I wound up going up there for a semester, and then I came back home, and I got a job working as an apprentice for the electrical union. I forgot the IEW something, but I got accepted into that program, and I was working as an electrician. And so in doing that, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. I didn't really particularly like school. I was like, gosh, man, I'm so tired of going to school. I didn't do anything for me. It was like punishment.
Yeah, I can relate. Me and Rob can definitely relate.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a part of it.
So I was working for this as a electrical company. I can't even remember the name of it. I want to say Cole Electric, but that might be, I can't remember exactly the name of it. But anyway, so got accepted to the apprentice school, and I was going through all that and working out in Alpharetta, right there off 400. And I remember we were working at a church. We were building a church, and the journeyman, who's the lead guy for the company on the job site, his name was Andy, and I played softball with him. He was a big softball player. So anyway, working with him, he's a great guy, and I was doing all this. And I remember one day I was standing up on a ladder, and I had straddled the drop ceiling, the aluminum grid that they set the tile. Yeah, I was straddling that, and I'd ask, hey, is this hot? No, it's not hot. Everything's been killed. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the first mistake. Don't trust anybody else to tell you something. So when I cut into the wires, they were not dead. They were alive. And when I cut into it, it shocked me, electrocuted me, and I was straddling that grid on that ladder, and I had to kick the ladder out from underneath me. And that day, I was like, I'm done with electrical work. Yeah. This is not what I want to do. I got to figure this stuff out. So that was, I was fresh out of high school. I was 18 years old, and I'd already been to West Georgia, already been to Rick's College out in Idaho. Now I'm back home. I was going to try, learning the electrical trade. And I realized
that didn't work.
That I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And so, and this was when some things just started happening in my life. When you feel like things happen to change your direction, or you say they happen by fate. This
Yeah.
is, so I was like, all these things are happening to me. And I realized that, this world is not about James Kelly. I thought it was in high school, everything was about me. And I remember me and my dad growing up as a teenager, me and him clashed because he would have been the first person to say I needed an attitude adjustment. So me and him didn't see eye to eye. And I started realizing, hey, I need to get my act together. I got to figure out what I want to do with myself, what I want to become, what I want to do. And I just started thinking about what the meaning of life is and what I wanted to do. And that prompted the spiritual side. And so I started going back to my religious roots as a kid. I grew up in the Mormon church, but now, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I grew up in that church, and I'd always had that faith, but I wasn't really active and didn't really go a lot. But at 18, I'm thinking, I'm an adult now. I need to get my act together. And so I decided to start going back to church. And in doing so, the Spirit started working on me. Things started happening to me in my life. And then I had a good friend come back and visit me who was a church missionary that served his mission here in Atlanta, Georgia, back in the early 80s. And so he came back. It's probably 88, 87. I'd already graduated from high school, and he came back to visit, and he was a big influence and said, hey, James, what are you doing with your life? Have you thought about serving a mission? I was like, heavens no. I don't want to serve a mission for the church. I'm glad to be going back to church, but I'm not going to put everything on hold for 2 years and go on a mission. I said, that mission's not for me. He says, well, maybe you should think about it. And then my cousin that I went to school with out there in Rexburg, Idaho, he put his mission papers in. And so we were really close. And he's like, man, James, you really might think about needing to go on a mission. I'm like, y'all can go. That's not for me. That's not what I want to do. So I kept pushing it off. And, and things just, the Lord knew me. He knew who I was, knew where I was at. He knew how he needed to influence me. So he kept putting these people in my pathways. And I kept crossing my friend that came back to visit, my cousin. My mom played a really big role because she was always a real spiritually strong person, and was always there for me. My dad was a great guy, not a very religious guy, but he was a guy that taught me principles. He taught me moral character, value, things that are important in life. One of his biggest pet peeves is he hated a thief. I remember one day as a kid, we were in the backyard playing with this ball, and he realized, where'd y'all get this ball at? I mean, we couldn't have been 10 years old. We said, well, it was over in the neighbor's yard. Well, how'd you get it? I said, well, we hopped the fence and got the ball and we started playing with it. Well, we learned real quick that you don't go take things that are not yours. So, I mean, he was a man of principle, and he taught me good principles, and that set a good foundation for me. But going back to when I was trying to find out, what I wanted to do, and I had these people, cross my paths about, you need to think about a mission. You need to think about a mission. I was like, gosh, man, I can't imagine putting my life on hold for 2 years at 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
It's a big leap of faith.
Yeah.
Huge.
So, but as I said, the Lord kept working on me. And then I remember being by myself and at night laying in bed and thinking, maybe I need to think about this. Maybe I need to pray about it. I wasn't a big religious person at that time, but my mom was. She was a big influence on me on spiritually. And, whenever I'd be sick or hurt or, I'd call her, Mom, pray for me, and she goes, well, you can pray for yourself. She goes, and I said, Mom, I need you to pray for me, and so she would. But so I learned the power of prayer. And then as I was trying to find myself, I had some pretty spiritual experiences just between me and the Lord, and I was all by myself. And he told me, my biggest fear about serving a mission was I hadn't grown up in the church active. So I didn't really know a lot. I didn't really know what I believed and the principles and everything. So I knew it felt good. I knew that it had good values, but I wasn't 100%. There's no way I could leave and go 2 years and preach to other people. So I had a lot to learn. But one day I was just thinking about and praying about, and the Lord said, I'm not asking about your capability. I'm only asking about your availability.
Wow.
Are you available?
Wow.
I'll do the rest if you'll just commit to going. And so with going totally on faith, and here I was, 18 and a half years old, I was just finding my testimony of the gospel.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how am I going to go out and serve for 2 years preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ when I'm learning myself? But when I had that spiritual experience, when the Lord revealed to me, I'm not asking about your capability, just your availability. And once I knew that's what I needed to do, then that's always been my personality. Whenever I figured out that I wanted to do something, by golly, I was going to go do it. Even when I was 5 years old playing football, I just loved it.
You go all in.
And that,
yeah.
that shows a lot of what we call as boldness. That shows a lot of boldness. And even I don't know if you even realize it, but even to be 18 and try West Georgia, then to leave there, what do you think that personality factor is? Ambition? Because like you're out there I relate to this in my own story, but you're trying to figure it out.
Trying to figure it out.
You actually give yourself different options. Some people need to figure it out and they just keep doing the same thing for 10 years in a row.
Well, the one thing about me, and my wife will attest to this, and people who do know me, I'm not afraid of taking risk.
Yes.
Yeah. Now there's a difference between just being real risky and willing to do anything of doing crazy things. I like to take calculated risk.
Yeah. Calculated is the key.
But I am willing to stick my neck out there, and I've done it many, many times throughout my life, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like I've been able to get to where I'm at in life today, not only because of the Lord blessing me, mixed with a little bit of luck, but also because I was always willing to take a little bit of a risk. And so that risking, putting that forward, my faith of going to go on that 2-year mission, that was the pinnacle turning point for the rest of my life.
Wow.
That set me on the course that I needed to be on, and from that point on, I've never looked back. And I can still remember the feeling, and when I had that revelation between me and the Lord says, I'm not asking about your capability, just your availability. And you hear when you go to church and people tell you, the Lord, turn it over to Him, and He can do more with your life than you can do with your own life yourself. And so
that's good.
I live by that principle, and I'm not perfect, and I ain't lived a perfect life, but
Nobody has.
that's what is motivated. That's what I've lived by. That's been one of the principles, kind of my motto, and I do it with everything that I do. Whether it's in business, whether it's in friendship, relationships, family, business. I try to live by those morals.
It's the only thing with a 100% success rate.
Yeah.
Well, you can't fail when you got Him at the head.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
People live their life in fear because, you look in the world that we live in today, and it's crazy out there. I look at when I was in high school, and now I'm looking at my youngest son now. He's a senior at the same high school I went to, and I'm thinking, this is scaring me to death.
Yeah, what happened?
From what he's being pressured with versus what I was pressured with is totally different. But this is where my faith comes in. It says in the Bible, thou shalt not fear.
Yeah.
The Lord tells us if you believe in me, you have faith in me, then you have no need to worry about anything. And so, even though there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of things going out there in the world, in the end, who wins?
Yeah.
That's right. So that's it. I want to be on the winning team.
Yeah. That's right.
I want to be on the winning team. So for me, that's what I always think about when things get tough, or you hear all these bad things going on. It's like, you know what? That's okay. Just keep pushing forward, pushing through, and enduring. And at the end, you're going to win.
Yes.
You're going to come out on top.
That's
but
right.
you got to go through that trial of faith, that trial of fire, the purification process that you have to go to be purified. So that's the way I look at it.
That's good stuff, man. What is the mission trip like? So for 2 years, where did you go, and what was
Well,
that experience like?
It's a really neat experience, and some people know about it, some people don't. And I mean, I could talk a long time about that, but I know we don't want to spend this whole time talking about that. But in the church, all young men, it used to be that when they got to the age of 19, you could turn in your papers and be interviewed and find out whether or not you were worthy and able to go on a mission, you know. And so at that time it was 19. So I was 18 and a half when all this was going on. So it was perfect timing for me, you know. So when I realized I wanted to put my mission papers in, I went through that process where I sat down and met with, at the time, is our bishop, you know, same thing as the pastor of any other church. And we talked about things, and he interviewed me. And, you know, you had to be worthy to go. You couldn't be a person that was out there doing crazy things in your life. And, you know, and I wasn't crazy growing up, but I wasn't perfect either. But going through the interviewing process, making sure you're willing to live that lifestyle, you know, as a missionary. Because when you go as a missionary, you dedicate 2 years, you turn your papers in, you don't get to choose where you go.
Wow.
You know, that goes to the church headquarters, and the prophet and the brethren of the church, they pray about where that you need to go, literally every missionary. And then they say, okay, well, this person needs to go to China, not China, because you can't go to China, but, you know, any Africa, England, you know. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to go somewhere foreign. You know, that'd be really cool to learn a foreign language and all that. So I remember I turned my papers in, and it took about 3 weeks to get them back to get where my assignment was. And when I opened up, I was reading it, and it says, you're hereby called to serve in the Salt Lake City South mission. And you'll enter the MTC, which is the Missionary Training Center, at such and such date, it was like January the 4th or something like that. And you'll serve for a period of 24 months, and you'll come home. And I'm thinking, I keep reading, I'm like, where am I going? I mean, I know church headquarters is in Salt Lake City, but why would I be going to the headquarters in Salt Lake City? But anyway, that was a mission area also for the church. And it turned out to be, that was one of the highest baptizing English-speaking missions in the world. So anyway, it was really good for me. It was good for me I felt like the Lord really knew me too, because again, you remember before I committed to going on a mission, I was scared to death about my capability.
Yeah.
And, you know, here I was in the heart of where the church was organized and started. And so I was around a lot. And so I just felt like I was in fast forward motion all the time in my learning, my growing, and my testimony. But at the same time, having the experiences of helping others see the same things and come to the same knowledge of the Savior. So it was a huge, that 2 years. The other thing is you can't date. You know, you always have a companion, and that companion is another male. And so, and that's for safety purposes, but also to keep you out of trouble.
Accountability.
You know, and so here there was about 200 elders. You're called an elder when you go on a mission. That's your title. So I didn't go by my first name. I'd go by Elder Kelly. And so all the missionaries, we go by elder and their last names. But it was 2 years, and you were always with a companion 24/7. You're never alone. You couldn't date. You didn't watch TV. You didn't listen to the radio. You basically, for 6.5 days, you committed 6.5 days of the week to doing the Lord's work, teaching the gospel and going around talking to people and teaching things. And then you had a half of a day, which they called your prep day, where you could go out and buy your groceries, wash your clothes, and do all that. But as far as the whole 2 years, there's no dating, no watching TV. I mean, I didn't even know what was really going on in the world.
Wow.
I mean, you're not that you're closed off to it, because you go to people's homes and you hear things. But as far as the purpose of being a missionary was not to be of the world, or I never get this right, not in the world, but of the world.
Yeah.
However that goes.
Yeah.
But your focus was teaching the gospel of Jesus
Wow.
Christ, not what was going on in the world.
Spiritual development you had.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we joined this thing at church. It's called Joshua's Men, where we just go and read a book every month and meet once a month.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
like a couple
discipline's
times a month.
helping, but the discipline,
and that's
yeah.
developing us. So
Yeah.
that right there,
Yeah.
And I have a shout out Dr. Nathan Bennett, but one of my friends is a Latter-day Saint.
I know him.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, he's from Utah. He probably went.
He was in
went
my
to the
ward
church?
at church. Yeah.
Okay.
I know Nathan.
That's off topic, but his mission was to Romania.
Yeah.
And he told me all about that. And so the spiritual development that happens, but also like some people go to the foreign country, but you being at the hub of where everything was and
Right.
all these people that are around you that have been
Yeah.
here for years get to minister to you.
And I had some great spiritual experiences on my mission. But looking back on my life, that was the crossroads when I decided to go, and I went, and you dedicated that 2 years, and it wasn't living a college lifestyle, even though I was college age and all my friends back home were going to college and doing the college thing and, all these things. And here I was out here wearing a suit and tie every day. And I was on a bicycle for a little bit of time, but I was in the car for most of my mission. But it was a humbling experience, but it really did give me the attitude adjustment that I needed.
Wow.
I mean, it changed.
That's one way.
I mean, I realized that the focus was not on me, but the focus needed to be on everybody else.
Yeah.
And so when I figured that out, it was life changing. And so the skills and the things that I learned from my mission has made me who I am today. Had I not served a mission and not had that experience, I would not be sitting where I'm at. So
I love that.
that's
Some people don't learn those lessons till they're 40, 50, 60.
Or
yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
ever.
Yeah, they spend their whole life searching for it.
Yeah. Yes,
And
that's
they
exactly
look at
right.
then when
Yeah.
it's about the others. That's wonderful.
Well, that is the coolest story. I just love it. We're very spiritual. So to hear that journey that you went on, I'm honestly jealous. I would love to have got to do something like that. I know it sounds crazy, but that is just so cool.
It was crazy. And at the time I was worried because here I'm thinking because I'm still worried about being cool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm worried about what my friends are thinking, what the girls are going to think about me, And so, but my faith was so strong and that spiritual experience that I had was so strong, I could not go
Yeah.
because it was just laid out so plainly what I needed to do.
Yeah.
So, and I always had, like I said, personality. When I make up my mind I'm going to do something, then I'm full
Yeah.
force of doing it. And so, in doing that, you give up a lot, you sacrifice a lot of worldly things so that you can do spiritually things. But I'm telling you, I received more from my mission than I feel like that I gave. Now, the Lord probably sees it a little bit different, but for me, it was a changing. I learned so many skills. I've learned how to be a better person. I learned how to be a better husband, a better father, and now a grandfather. Just had my first grandbaby. So
Probably a better communicator.
yeah, and I never would have been successful in my business had I not had that mission experience, because
That's
it taught me discipline. It taught me how to sacrifice. Because like I said, for 2 years, you don't get up and watch the news. You don't listen to the radio. You don't go to the movies. You don't date. Your whole focus is about teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I respect that so much, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I think that's a good breaking point.
Real quick, guys, this is Rob with the Wheeling Agency. I just wanted to reach out to y'all. We've been in business a little over 3 years here in Paulding County. We take pride in serving our community, so next time you're in the need for some insurance, give us a call and reach out. Now get back to the show.
But there's something there I could share too that is a lifestyle and a code that you live by. Being a return missionary and having the gospel in your life, claiming to be something. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
Amen.
Amen.
So part of walking the walk is, are you going to be one of these guys that goes out and parties all the time and is promiscuous with women? Because if you go that route, you're going back down the same road you came from.
That's right.
So even when I came back home, now you're back in the world.
You're at a different standard almost.
Yeah. But you got to go a different path.
Yeah, because the world's still pulling at you.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
even to this day with us doing the stuff that we do, the world is still there pulling if you're not careful.
So that was hard. You're 21 years old. You're a young stripling warrior, I call it.
Yeah.
And and to heed off the temptations of the world, with the things the world would want you to do, to keep a spiritual insight of things and to be doing good all the time, not just some of the times.
That's right.
You know, I don't believe in going to church on Sunday, then doing what I want to the other 6 days of the week. You know, if you live it on Sunday, you better live it the other 6 days.
That's right.
Because if you're not, then you're being a hypocrite. You're not being who you really are.
That's right.
You know, so that's how
I love that. So when you get back from the mission trip, I know we obviously know now Kelly Landscape is a household name in our community, but I know you started that soon thereafter. How long was it after the mission trip,
was a
and
year
what was that year like
God,
before?
it was the year after my mission. I remember when I came home from my mission, my brother, he was working for UPS unloading trucks at night, so that was like a 4-hour shift. Paid pretty good, but he had to work from like midnight to 4 every Monday through Friday to load the trucks so that when the drivers came in the morning, they'd be ready to go. So in the day, he would cut yards for homeowners. So when I came back from my mission, he was a couple years younger than me. He was working at UPS at night and he was cutting yards. And so he got tired of cutting the yards during the day because he was working at night. And I said, well, I'll cut the yards. So I started cutting the yards, and then I got a job working for, at the time it was called Kimlon, but now they've been bought out years ago. Now everybody knows it as True Green, the biggest
Huge.
nationwide lawn care company in the world. So I went to work for them, and I'd been there, gosh, almost a year, probably close to a year. I was working as a lawn care technician, and I remember I was making $320 a week salary, and they had revenue goals that as long as you hit your revenues goals, you didn't have to work on Saturdays. So Saturdays were, as everybody know, when you're young and single, you want your weekends, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I was very driven, and so when they give me a goal, I'm going to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
And so when I go to work, I mean, I would work through lunch, I'd hustle, you know, and you know, my revenue goes, I think it was at the time, it might have been around $1,000, $1,200 a week was your revenue goal. So you had to do like around $200, $250 worth of revenue each day in order to meet your revenue goal back then. So we drove these big tanker trucks. They were big, they were just under the CDL, so you didn't have to have a CDL license, but they were big tanker trucks that had the chemicals mixed in it. And I remember one day I was out on, it was over off West Cobb, off of Ackworth due West. I can't remember the name of the subdivision. Anyway, I was in West Hampton was the name of the subdivision. I was in there spraying because that was my route, was the West Cobb route. And you know, you got this big tanker truck and it works off a lot of PTO. So whenever you'd park, you'd have to put it in the neutral, put your emergency brake up, engage your PTO, and then get out and you scotch your tires with the scotch, you know, to keep your tires where they can't roll. And so that was a process every time you do that. And that way your truck's running and, you know, it's safe. Well, one day it was towards the end of the day, and I was hustling and trying to get my revenue met, and I pulled up to a house, and I was kind of parked on a little bit of an incline, not much, just a little bit of an incline. And I get out, throw it up in neutral, pull the emergency brake up, turn the PTO on, but I forget to scotch my tires. I didn't scotch my tires. So I grabbed the hose, and you know, at that time we were doing the entire yard, so it was a big yard. So I had to carry this hose all the way around to the very back of the house. And so I'm pulling this hose over my shoulder, going around the driveway, around the cars, around the house, through the gate. I'm going all the way to the very back corner of the house and working my way back to the truck. And by the time you get to the backyard, it should be, you know, it shouldn't be so hard to pull the hose because you're almost there. And I keep thinking, why is this thing so hard to pull? And then I get to the very back corner of the yard and I look down the side of the houses, between the houses, and then I see my truck rolling.
Oh gosh.
Down this hill. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't scotch my tires. So I just dropped the hose. I ran, and at the time I was in pretty good shape, hurdled the fence and was in a full sprint. And by this time I get to the truck is, you know, I was running as fast as I could, and the truck was going the same speed. And I get to the truck, I get the door open, and I'm trying to get up into it. But by this time the truck has gained so much momentum, I couldn't do it. I just had to let go. And so I watched that truck roll down the hill and then hit the power box in the neighborhood.
Dang.
knocks out. I mean, it sounded like a bomb went off.
Yeah.
And knocked all the power out in the neighborhood. And then he got all these homeowners coming out. What's going on? And hearing all this stuff. And I'm thinking, crap. And here I'm standing in the road in my uniform for Chemline. I'm thinking, holy smokes, what has just happened? I can't believe this.
It's a humbling moment.
And yeah. So I'm looking at this and all these neighbors, nobody has power. And here my truck is on top of the power meter, or the big meter box there that they have in subdivisions. And so I'm sitting here and I had to get a little phone. And back then that was right at the beginning of cell phones. I think I had pagers. I think that's what I had, was a pager then. I think I remember I had to borrow a neighbor's phone to call Chemline, to call the office and talk to the district manager.
Too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That call sucked.
So it was embarrassing, and I couldn't believe I did it, but I was in such a hurry because I wanted to be more efficient, try to do more and more, and that was one less step I didn't have to take. Well, it wound up costing me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I'm still waiting out there, waiting for, obviously I can't get my truck, and waiting for, somebody from the company to come out there from Chemline. And as I'm waiting, Cobb EMC pulls up. Now, Cobb EMC is the biggest power company in Cobb County. Well, of all the people that was on that truck, guess who was on that truck?
There's no telling.
Ben Paris.
Let's go.
Ben Paris.
I love that.
And I'm looking at me, and Ben we were good friends. He was a year behind me in high school, and we played sports together. We spent the night at each other's houses, and I mean, we were really good friends. And I'm thinking to myself, of all the people that had to come out to this catastrophe, it's Ben Paris. And so he was razzing me, and I already felt bad enough. So anyway, that was kind of a laughing moment. So me and Ben, we'll share that memory to the day we die. But that was I won't say a neat experience, but it was kind of funny how that played out. But anyway, they got the truck out of there, and I got back to the office, and because Chemline's a nationwide company, my branch manager, who was over me, he's like, man, I told him everything happened, and he goes, well, the policy is you got to scotch your tie. I said, I know it. He goes, well, I got to put you on probation right now, and then we have to send this up the chain to corporate. And he said, so for the time being, you're going to have to ride with somebody in the truck. And I was humiliated. I was not used to being the one riding in the seat. I was used to being the one that was running the show. I want to hit my revenue. I wanted to work at a certain pace. So for me to be riding shotgun and having to be the help, that was not in my character, or I should say character, that was not in my personality. So that was humbling to do that. So I go through this for a week. Every day I come in, I'm having to be riding shotgun. I can't even do the own route. I have to do all the dirty work, and I'm thinking, man, this really stinks. And my manager's talking to me, and he's like, I still haven't heard back from corporate, so we're just waiting for them to give us the go ahead and let you go back to work. Well, he says, but you're going to be on probation for 2 weeks. Well, I don't even think it took 2 weeks. It was more than a week. I remember coming in one day from work and get back to the branch there, and he calls me in his office, and he says, James, I need to talk to you. And so I go in there, and here I am. I'm 22. I've been off my mission now for about a year, and I was going to Kennesaw College at nighttime. Again, trying the school thing again. Yeah. And so I was working during the day. I was cutting those few yards for my brother that he didn't want to cut no more in the afternoons and evenings, and I was going to school part-time.
Hustling.
Yeah. So I had a lot going on, but I got back to work, back to the branch that day, and he called me in his office. He goes, James, I got some bad news. I'm like, what? He goes, we got to let you go. I said, what? Yeah. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I heard back from corporate, and they said, it was company policy nationwide that, if you have a truck incident and you only been with the company not, barely a year, it's automatic termination.
Wow.
And I'm like, he goes, I know. He goes, I hate to do it. He goes, you're one of my best technicians. Believe me, I don't want to see you go. He goes, but my hands are tied. I've got to let you go. And so I'm thinking, man, I busted my tail here for a year. I knew, not for an ego thing, but when I do something, I always want to do it the best I could do it.
Yeah.
And I'd given it my all, and I'd done it, and I'd done well, and I'd learned a lot. And here I am getting fired for a mistake. Now, I did make a mistake because I didn't chalk my tires, but man, I gave that company everything I had every day. And to come in there and to get fired, that's the first time I'd ever been fired from a job in my life. And if you know me, even as a little kid, I had my first real job when I was 14 years old. My dad would drop me off at a funny thing, it was a landscape nursery right there in Mableton. As he went to work, he'd pass it. Me and my brother would be dropped off there. We'd work there all the summers. He'd drop us off early in the mornings, and then when he was coming back in the evenings, he'd pick us back up. And, you know, we worked in this plant nursery, moving plants, weeding, and doing whatever they needed us to at little kids, 14 years old. I remember getting our first paycheck, and there was in these little bitty manila envelopes. And the clerk would give us our pay and have our hours on there and the amount that they were paying us, how much taxes she was taking out. And I'd open up and I'd have, you know, $70. I'm like, man, I'm rich. You know? And I was 14 years old. So that was my first taste of earning money.
Yeah.
And I really, at the age of 14, I realized, hey, I like this.
You got the bug then.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, life moved on. So I met this. So my personality, I always worked through high school. I always had jobs in the summer, even when I was in school, going to high school. I'd worked at the Winn-Dixie. I even worked at a men's clothing store one time. That was a funny thing. You wouldn't think I'd be selling men's clothing.
I don't know, man. That coat looks pretty good.
Yeah. But
So this was very humbling to get fired. It had to be.
Oh,
Probably a lot of emotions going on.
it was very humbling. It was another one of those experiences in my life that, man, I really took a close look at myself, think, you know, how's this happening to me? I'm fresh back from my mission. I sacrificed those 2 years. I'm trying to do what's right. I'm on the straight and narrow. I'm going to school. I'm working every day. I'm still living a good life. How can something like this happen? And, you know, I'm 22 years old trying to figure things out. But anyway, I didn't have no choice about it. It's one of those things where in life where you have an experience, something happens to you and you have no control over it happening.
Yes.
You know, and whenever you have those experiences, those are hard things. Those are hard pills to swallow.
Oh, yeah.
When you have zero control. And I had zero, in this situation, I had zero control because it didn't matter what I did, I couldn't save my job.
Yeah.
So I remember going home just feeling just like at the very bottom of the barrel, thinking, well, now what am I going to do now? You know, now I don't have the $320 a week. You know, I'm living at home. I said, you know, I thought, well, you know, I've been cutting these 6 yards on the side. You know, I was making like $25 a yard, so that's $150 extra. But, you know, that was half my paycheck, you know, so I was making an extra $150 a week. So I said, well, you know, I remember waking up the next day. I didn't waste much time trying to figure things out. I thought, you know what? I'm making $150 a week just cutting 6 yards. What if I went out and printed up a box of flyers, and then I'd go to these neighborhoods and I'd go around and I'd tape them to the mailboxes. You know, that's what people did back then. So I'd seen other people doing it, and I thought, well, you know, I'll try that. So I remember coming up with the footprint or the design of my flyer.
Yeah.
You know, it's Kelly Lawn Service. It's Kelly Green. You know, it's Kelly Lawn Service when I first started it. And I was proud of it. And I took it to the printers. I said, yeah, I want 1,000 of these. Well, they printed me a box of them. I think it was like 1,500 coming in the box. And so they said, well, you can come pick them up later this week. I said, okay. So I go back later that week, pick it up. And I'm like, the next day, I'm out there canvassing neighborhoods, just taping, you know, walking neighborhoods, taping these flyers on all these mailboxes. And, you know, I figured out for every 1,000 flyers that I could put out, I'd get 10 phone calls. And out of the 10 phone calls, you're going to get about 5 of the customers. So I had 6 customers, put out 1,000
Flyers.
had 5 more customers. Now I got 11. So now I'm making $225. Yeah,
Closer to 300.
closer to. I'm getting closer now. You know, but you know, this all is happening within just a few weeks. And next thing I know, within a couple of months, I'm making $400 or $500.
Let's go.
And I'm
Working for
thinking,
yourself.
working for myself, I'm like, hey, I like this. You know, maybe this ain't too bad. You know, maybe I found something I could really sink my teeth in. And at the time, again, I was going to school at Kennesaw State College at nighttime. And I remember sitting in class at night just dead because I'd work from sun up to sundown cutting these yards. But now I was making almost twice the amount of money I was making at Kimlon, working for myself. And I was going to school. I'm like, gosh, I'm so tired. I hate being here. And I thought, you know what, man, this is not for me. I'd rather put my effort of going out here and earning more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever that quarter ended, I never re-enlisted. I just, you know what, I'm going to put all the focus on, you know, finding more yards.
Wow.
And that's kind of how everything started,
Yeah,
you know.
that is so cool.
With I had a 21-inch Murray push mower that was not self-propelled. The self-propelled part with your legs.
Yeah.
You know, I had an electric weed eater. You know, because again, you got like, this is 1990. You know, then now they had powered gas small engine equipment, but I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm inherited this 21-inch mower that my brother had been using.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, I didn't even have a trailer, so I had an S10 Blazer, and I remember letting down the hatch of that Blazer, and I had to physically pick up that 21-inch mower and put it in the back of it with all the weed eater, and then I had to roll up a weed eater cord, and then you're bagging your clippings. So I got grass clippings, and I'm packing all this stuff in the back of this S10 Blazer, and I remember I had a manual edger. Have you ever seen a manual edger that you edge concrete with?
No,
I've seen one.
I haven't.
You talking about putting some blisters and callus on your hands. That thing will do it to you. But that's what I had. That's all I had. And so that's what I used. And so I'd go out there, and then got to the point where I was cutting, you know, 10, 12 yards a day. And by this time it was about $30 a yard. So it got to the point where I was making $360 a day.
Mm.
Now I'm making more in a day than I was making all week
Yeah,
at
That's
Kimlon.
amazing.
Is that about the time you started scaling?
Well, that took me, I spent the whole summer building the business, working for myself. And I got up to about, you know, I probably had about 25 yards. You know, it got to maybe 30, but it got to a point where I had so many yards that one person can only do so much.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, gosh, man, I got to have some help, man, but I can't afford to pay nobody. You know, I need all this money myself. But I remember the first person I hired to the first person I hired to put on salary, I was paying him $400 a week salary. And at this time, I had already moved out of the house. I was living in downtown Dallas. It was probably what year, 1992, I think, 92, 93, early 90s. And I had actually, before I moved into the house, this is another neat story. I'd bought a nice Jeep Wrangler, you know, when I was working at Kimlon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was my, you know, as you know, you're a young guy back, and you know, a Jeep's cool. It gets all the girls like that, you know. So I had this good-looking Jeep, nice wheels and everything, and it was my pride and joy. And but when I was working with my business, I was pulling a small trailer with it. But I realized that, you know, I wanted to move out of the house, and I wanted to buy a house. Well, in downtown Dallas, there was an old house that was for sale. It was Imogene Barnett was her name. Nicest lady there was. This house is up for sale by owner. I saw it in the yard. I called her, talked to her. She goes, yes, you can come look at it. I remember going looking at it, and I think they were asking $65,000. I wound up buying it for $60,000. But in order for me to buy it, I had to sell my Jeep because I had to come up with $5,000 down payment for the bank to loan me the money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I thought, well, I got to sell my Jeep. So I sold my Jeep, got the $5,000, bought the house, but I couldn't afford to go buy another Jeep.
Vehicle.
So I took $500 and I went and bought this beat up Toyota truck, little Toyota truck. It didn't even have a front bumper or grill. It'd been wrecked. It was really a piece of work. But I drove that thing around for about 6 months until I could upgrade. But I remember, you know, thinking, gosh, you know, you want a Jeep or do you want a house? Which one do you want?
Yeah.
And so that was another point in my life where, and this is an old house. The house that I bought on Confederate Avenue was built in 1903. And it was just a little 2-bedroom house. It didn't even have a shower. It had a tub. So here I am, a young guy, and it ain't cool to be a bachelor. It ain't cool to be taking baths. That's what girls do, right?
You guys want to come over? I'm gonna start a bath.
And so here I am. I'm living in this house, and I'm working outside every day, and I'm hot, and so I come in, and you want to take a shower and get all clean, but what do I got to do? I got to run bath water. And so every day I'd be taking this bath in this house, and it was an old house. It had good bones to it, but it was really dated. And like I said, it didn't have a shower. All I had was a tub. It didn't have central heating and air. Had window units for air, and I had little gas heaters in every room for gas. So the winter times got real cold, but it was funny. But I remember, but I just loved the house, and it had all this history to it, and all the historical stuff, and all the things from where it was built back at the turn of the century. And I loved working with my hands, so I started remodeling it. So I started with the bedroom first. I remodeled the bedroom, and then the next thing you know, I've remodeled the whole house. But long story short, that kind of set me on one of my hobbies was I'd like to fix up old houses. Mm-hmm. So here I am. I'm in my mid-20s now. I'm 25. I'm single, not married, and I'm like, I gotta settle down. It's time to, I need to figure out which direction I'm getting old, Well, then I was 29 years old. I went back. This is, because I bought my house when I was 23. I was living in the house 23. And then I went back to visit some friends in Utah. Me and a buddy of mine went back there for a skiing trip, and I went back there to actually visit a girl that was there. She was going to school at BYU. So I was back there visiting her, and me and my friend, we were going around visiting some old people we knew from our mission, and we were skiing, just having a good old time. Well, I go by one of my friends' house that I do from back here, that she was going to school out there. Well, one of her roommates, his sister, had just gotten back from her mission. Oh. She had started a mission in Phoenix, Arizona. And I just happened to go by their apartment, and she had only been home from her mission 2 weeks. And I just happened to come by there at the time that she was visiting her sister. And I remember walking in the front door of this condo complex and seeing this girl. I'm thinking, wow. When you see, I was like, this is my exact words. I said, now I could deal with that.
Yeah.
I was, you role play in your mind. I could be married to a lady like that.
Was there any doves flying in the background?
There's all kinds of things flying. It was sparks and fire and doves, and I just thought, and she was just beautiful knockout redhead, and I've never seen a redhead so beautiful in my life. I was just amazed. I'm like, so me and my buddy and all my other friends that I was there, we all hung out that night together, and it was just, me and her started talking, and we just hit it off from day one. This was March the 9th of what year? 97 or 98? I think 98. Yeah, that'd be right. About 98. March 9th of 98. And I remember spending the whole night. We went out to eat. We went to the movies. I remember buying her ice cream, and she thought that was the nicest thing that because it wasn't really a date because it was with a group of people. But anyway, I made sure I bought her ice cream at the ice cream parlor.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah,
Carson's listening. Yeah.
Then we go to the movies, and here we are. You go into the movies back then. That's where you went because that's you couldn't watch. They have Netflix and all these things on TV, but so it was at the theater, and this is before the movie starts. It's kind of lit up in the theater, and here she was. She was this fun, bubbly person, beautiful. I mean, when I say she's drop dead gorgeous, she's drop dead gorgeous. But she was so much fun and just the life of the party. I remember her getting up, and the theater's full of people. She goes down there and in front of the screen when it's still light in the theater, and she starts river dancing. As somebody dared her to do it, and so she did it as a joke. but that was her personality. She's always just really fun and full of energy, and just, you know, she don't meet a stranger. But I remember that night thinking, wow, this girl's amazing. You know, that's the type of person that I want to be married to.
So that's March of '98.
Yep.
How much longer until y'all were married?
Well, that's
know where
another
that's
story.
going.
Yeah. So March of '98. So that whole night, this was on a Monday night. I flew home on Tuesday morning. We stayed up the whole night talking. And in fact, she had a date with, because again, she's fresh home from her mission for 2 weeks. And before her mission, she dated this guy for a couple of years. And she had her first date with him the next day. And so I stayed up talking to her, and I was, you know, I helped her pick out the outfit for her date with him for the next day.
That's hard.
You know, but I was just glad to be in her presence, you know. So we talked and we did all that, and then she wound up taking me to the airport the next morning, and I remember being at the airport, and they came over the intercom and said, "Hey, if anybody would like to take a bump in a flight, we'll give you a free flight." And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm single, I ain't got nothing. I mean, I got to go back home and go to work, but I'm not pressed. And I was like, hey, I'll take this bump in the flight. I get me a free ticket. I knew exactly what I was going to do with that free ticket. I was coming back out to Utah. Yeah. So I took the bump, and it was maybe like a 6-7 hour delay before my flight left. And I remember taking the bump, and then I remember going to the back then you had to go to the phones. I started to say cell phones, but the pay phones, you know, put your quarter in there. And I remember making the phone call, and I was sitting there on the pay phone, and I called her apartment, and she picked up the phone. And I said, yeah, you know, this has happened. I took the bump. I just wanted to call, see if you made it back home okay. I appreciate you taking me to the airport and all this. She goes, yeah. And I'm getting ready for my day. I said, well, hey, I just want to let you know I had a great time, you know, and I, you know, appreciate getting to know you. And I said, by the way, I got a bump in my flight. I got a free flight, so maybe I can come back out here later. So we talked for a little bit, and I hung up. I remember flying home that night, get home on Tuesday night. My friend here, good friend of mine here, he worked for Delta. And he had a sister that was living in Las Vegas. And he was like, hey, I'm going out to visit my sister in Las Vegas. You going to go? That was that very next weekend. I was like, let me see. I hung up the phone. I called Liz. This is my wife now, but I called her and I said, hey, how do you feel about meeting me in Las Vegas? Because she was in Provo, Utah. It's about a 5-hour drive down to Las Vegas. Yeah. And she says, oh, I'd love to. And I said, well, I'm going there with a friend of mine. Why don't you get some of your pals and we'll meet in Las Vegas and just have a, you know, good time down there. You know, of course, I'm not a gambler or a drinker, but if, you know, there's lots of things to do in Las Vegas, just to sightsee and all that, Absolutely. You know, the Hoover Dam and all these different things. But anyway, so the very next weekend, I'm in Las Vegas with her again.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, and you know, she was having a good time. I was having a good time. And it come to find out, she didn't have such a great time on that date. Mm-hmm. You know, she goes, the whole time I was on that date, all I could do is think about you.
Wow.
And so
you were like,
it was like,
I did hit the jackpot in Vegas.
Yeah. So, you know, eventually that was a long weekend. I came back home and I talked to her every day. And this is back when you paid for long distance.
Yeah.
You know, you remember.
You didn't care though. You was just paying.
Oh man, I was talking to her for 2 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember getting phone bills, $600 a month. That was more than my house payment.
Yeah.
But I didn't care because I was talking to her 2-3 hours a day. Well, we met March 9th. We got married June the 5th. 3 months later.
Wow.
So it was a really quick courtship. You know, you ask her today, she does not recommend that. Yeah. It's a big joke.
So
but
you talked her into coming back to Dallas.
Oh yeah, that was the thing. I said, listen, I'm set up here. I already got a house. I've had my business now for 7 years. I said, you know, I'm pretty established and on my way. And so she really wasn't established there. I mean, she could go to school here and, you know, work here. And anyway, so we decided that she'd just move here. So she moved here a month early, lived with my mom for a month. And then when we got married on June the 5th of '98. And been married now. Here it is. This June next month is our 25th wedding anniversary.
Wow. So, man, I gotta dive deep in that just a little deeper because you got emotional when you brought her up off air. I saw it in you, and all of us, we have amazing wives. So speak to that a little bit about because we have a lot of guys that work for us that are in that same time frame of life, the 20 years old. How important is it that you marry the right spouse and that you choose the right partner?
Here's the thing. I was always told, marry the right person at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And someone gave me that counsel, and that was some wise counsel of marrying the right person in the right place at the right time. And I definitely married the right person for me.
Yes.
And at the right time in my life and in the right place, being able to be married in the temple. And that's whole nother spiritual topic, talking about eternal marriages and stuff like that. But here's this beautiful woman. She's a returned missionary. She has the same faith as I do. She's strong in the faith. She's not one of those girls that you'd worry about when you're not with her. What is she doing?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, gosh, this girl's so drop dead gorgeous. She could have anybody she wants. Why does she want me? She chose me, and I was just ecstatic. But she has made me into the man that I am today, along with my faith. She's been such a huge influence on me, and it's just the way I met her and how all that transpired in the life that we've had over the 25 years. Now we have 3 kids. Two of them are grown up and out of the house. We have our oldest that's a senior in high school at Paulding County now, our 17-year-old son. But she's just an amazing woman. I mean, without her, I would not be who I am today. She has made me who I am today.
Did you say you were 29 when you met her?
I was 29.
So I want to say to that, because it's like I remember being that age. I got married when I was 25, so it's like I was younger getting married. But I remember being that age, and you just feel so rushed. Like there's a pressure because everybody else is married or having a kid or whatever. But dude, I just want to say, like, if it takes to being 29, hold on, because it's worth it. It's worth it when you get the right person.
Some people will find their spouse at 18 like I did, and some people will find it at 29, some people find it at 50.
It's like you said, right place,
I remember
right time.
thinking, gosh, I'm 29 years old. At that time, I felt old. And I'm thinking, gosh, my goal, I'm always setting goals. My goal is I want to be married before I'm 30 and have my first kid. I'm liking, because here I am, I have 3 other siblings. I'm the third of 4 siblings. So I had 2 older sisters and a younger brother. They're all married with kids. And here I am, not married, no kids. And I'm thinking, man, I'm really behind the 8 ball on this.
Wow.
And so anyway, I was, got married late in life, but man, was the wait worth it.
That's what I'm saying.
It was well worth it, because again, the worst thing you can do is rush into marriage and marry the wrong person.
Amen. And that happens so often.
Yeah, today that's a big issue.
That's a big issue. Well, I got to go to because we know the kickstart of Kelly, which I think is so cool to I can just see you picking up that mower and because now everywhere I go, I see Kelly landscape trucks. The other day I'm eating in Hiram and there's a Kelly landscape sweeper. And I'm like, man, this guy's doing it. Like, I just respect you because we love business. So how quick was the growth and tell it, because I mean, by the time you got married, how many employees, and then also tell us where you're at today.
Yeah.
How many employees, how many yards?
Take us from that first employee and into your business.
Well, like I said, when I hired my first employee on salary, I'd had other employees that worked part-time. I paid them by the hour. They'd come and go, summer help, seasonal help. But this was my first employee that I'd hired full-time that was going to be with me through the winters. And if you're ever from the green industry or landscaping business, winters are tough because there's not a lot to do in the winter. So I was really nervous about hiring this guy and thinking, gosh, I got to pay him $400 a week in the month of January, February, when most of the time I'm sitting in my house freezing to death because there's nothing to do. But anyway, so I went from that to, hiring him and, thinking, gosh, how am I going to pay him $400? But it all worked out and the business grew. And next thing you know, I had three employees, and it got to the point where I had to split and come up with 2 crews. And that was a big turning point for me at work, because as long as I was on the job, it was great, because I had a certain standard and expectation. And I made that sure it was that way with every job. Well, as soon as you split yourself and you got another crew, you got your crew I was doing, and then I had to worry about them doing a good enough job. And it's always harder when you're depending on somebody else. But, I've had a lot of great employees come through there, and, people think that, that I'm the one who made Kelly Landscapes. Now, I put a lot of hard work and effort into it, but I've had a lot of great employees that have sacrificed and really busted their tail for me over the years. That has really made Kelly Landscapes what it is today. And some of them are still there. I got one of my employees been with me over 25 years.
Wow.
You know, all my managers, they work from the bottom up. They're 10 plus years. I mean, Kelly Landscapes is what it is today, not just because of me, but because of the employees that I've hired, and working as a team has made us, you know, to be what we are today. But I going back to when I was first started, I remember thinking, gosh, you know, bringing home $1,000 a week, I thought I'd hit it big, because that's 3 times almost what I was making at Kimlon. And I was thinking, no, that's $52,000 a year, man. That's pretty dang good money. And I'm thinking, you know, here the business is growing every month, and
it's with the lifestyle you choose.
yeah.
So,
and so I'm thinking, you know what? You know, I'm sitting there dreaming, thinking, I love to the day I want to build this thing until it's $1 million company where I can gross $1 million worth of revenue. And when I've accomplished that, I've made it. I've reached the pinnacle. And so that was kind of my goal. And, you know, it took a few years, but I eventually accomplished it. I got to the $1 million mark, and then it went from the $1 million mark to the $3 million mark. And now, you know, to over $6 million a year company, awesome. You know, so and all this has happened over, you know, 32 years. You know, I started the company in February of 1992 when I got, March when I got fired from Kimlon. So, you know, it's a great success story. It was a lot of hard work, but, you know, I cannot say that I've done it all on my own. You know, I've worked my tail off. I've put the time in for sure, but I've had a lot of people help me. I had a lot of great mentors that they helped me learn the business side of things, because you can learn a trade. You can know how to be a good plumber or a good electrician, but being a good electrician and knowing that trade, but running a successful business is 2 different things.
Yes, sir. You're so right.
You've got to be able to do both. You got to have a business mind versus the skill set or the trade that you learn. You got to know both of them.
That's right.
You know, I want to visit that thought you had, because I'm at this age. I just think that any great leader, this is really the first time I've sat down and have a conversation with you, but any great leader will agree that there is no way that they could be there without the people that surround them. Right. And anyone who does is an egotistical maniac, and I just don't know how they have a business that's, right. And unless they're like Donald Trump right now or something, like I just don't know how you could, because right. Even what we're building, like without Rob and Brent and vice versa for all of us, like I couldn't have what I have.
And our guys that work for us every day.
Yeah. You are only, and there's another motto, you are only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Amen.
You know, and so that was another principle that I built on. You know, it's the way I live my life. You know, when I go and hang out with people on the weekends or at night or doing that social activities, I'm going to hang out with people that I want to be with. Yeah. The people that I want to be like, you know, because instead of being drugged down, I want to be brought up.
Yes.
You know, so I've always wanted to raise the bar in my life. And I don't say that as judging people, but it's a choice that people make in how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
And it's our choices that we make that determines the outcome, the product of what we're going to produce. And I want to produce good fruit. Mm-hmm. How do you produce good fruit? You do good things.
Yes. Right.
You know, and you are, you know, what you produce. And so,
I said your thoughts and your actions.
Well, yeah, because, you know, again, it goes back to the church and spiritual and the religious thing. You can't live your religion on Sunday and do what you want to the other 6 days of the week, because that doesn't work out.
No.
Then you're trying to be somebody you're really not.
Yeah, you're a fraud. And
yeah, and that was one principle that I learned from my dad, is that, you know, you're only as good as you are. You're only as good as you are that your word is good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying that right,
yeah,
but so he instilled those principles into me at an early age. So, you know, I knew at an early age that, you know, you are what you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And I've went through some things, you know, and as I went through school and through high school and all these different things that shaped my life, but there were some pretty profound experiences that I had that's kind of shaped me, molded me, my mission, getting married to my wife, my business, my experiences in having opportunities to hold leadership positions in the community, to hold leadership positions in my church, and to learn from all these different experiences. You know, at the age of 32, Boyd Austin was a neighbor of mine that lived down there on Confederate Avenue.
Yeah.
And he came to me. John Cochran was serving on city council, and he served for 21 years, I think. And his health wasn't good, and he's getting ready to resign and retire from being on the council. And Boyd Austin came and asked me, says, "Hey, have you ever thought about running for city council?" I said, "Man, me, a politician?" I thought, man, there's no way, I'm not a politician. I never looked at myself as a politician. But he says, "Hey, well, he was the mayor at the time, and, he says, I'd like for you to run for city council. I'd love to have you on the council." And I said, "Gosh, Boyd, that was the furthest thing from my mind, was being on city council, because, I'm kind of a reserved type person. I really don't like to be in the limelight. Now, I'm not shy. I'm not someone who likes to be tucked in the corner, but, I don't have to be front and center all the time. So I really didn't care about being in the spotlight of politics. But I did see it as an opportunity to be involved in the community.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I like to be involved. I like to be able to build things and see things grow. So in talking with my wife, and said, well, we'll try it. She really was hesitant about me doing it, because sometimes your name can get dragged through the mud when you're in politics. But anyway, so I wound up put my name in the hat. Eventually, in the beginning, I had opposition. Jeff Miller was running against me for that seat, and he was the former mayor at the time.
Oh, wow.
But he wound up dropping out, and him and I had a conversation, and we were friends. But I wound up running unopposed in the end, and so I was on city council for 16 years.
Wow.
And I'd had opposition twice out of those 16 years. But then Boyd Austin decided to retire from mayor and run for the state senate. And in doing so, he had to leave his term early. So the council appointed me to serve the rest of his term as mayor. So I had to step down from being on the city council, and it was I served as mayor. And then 6 months later, I actually had to run for it and was elected for mayor. So I've been the mayor now going on 4 years. So I've got 20 years in politics in the city of Dallas. And it's been a great ride. I mean, I've never in a million years would have thought that, one, I'd be a business owner of 32 years, married to the most beautiful woman in the world, with great kids, and a mayor of Dallas.
Let's go.
I mean,
cool.
I think back when I was in
pretty
high
good
school,
resume.
what I was thinking about.
Before
That
you
was
went on that mission,
Yeah.
and then you say this.
I'm thinking, I want to be a superstar athlete or something, but running a landscape company and the mayor of Dallas,
That's awesome.
that was the furthest thing from my mind. But it's been a great ride. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and it's been trying. All these things that I've been through have been trying. They've been hard, but they've been very worth it. And I remember when the option came up to me to run for mayor, and Liz, she's so great, and she's good as gold. She don't meet a stranger. I mean, I guarantee you, she walked through that door, y'all would feel like she was your best friend. You knew her whole life by the time she left. That's just how she makes people feel. That's why I think she's so awesome. But when I went to her about running for mayor, she did not want me to run for mayor. She says, "No, I don't want to be a part of that. People are going to say things about you." And I said, "Liz, what are they going to say?" "Well, they'll make up something." I said, "But there's nothing to make up. I mean, we are who we are. The man you see today is going to be the man you see Friday night or Wednesday morning. I don't change who I am, but I wake up every morning and try to live to be the person that I want to be. So I don't have any really skeletons in my closet. I mean, what are they going to say about me?" And she goes, "Well, they'll make up stuff," and they do. But anyway, so that was a big kind of controversy between her and I, and it wound up. I wound up running for mayor, but my mentality behind it, and then she wanted to know, well, why do you want to do it so bad? And I'd always regretted never graduating from college. That's always been something that I regretted, because, again, at the time that I was coming through school, if you wanted to be successful, you had to go to college to get a degree.
Yeah.
And so I always thought, man, I never have that feather in my cap. I never had that certificate on the wall. And, you know, I always felt like I failed in that area. But I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I'm 50 years old at the time. And I said, if I can run and be elected as mayor, and if I could run a city, you know, Dallas is a small town, but it's got 15,000 people. You know, it's you know, we have a pretty big multi-million-dollar budget that we run off every year. And I thought to myself, I said, you know, if I could run and be elected and serve as a mayor for 4 years and do a good job at it, that to me would be my degree. Yeah. That would be my college degree, and that's what I want to hang my hat on.
That's awesome.
You know, so it wasn't for the notoriety of being called mayor, but it was the challenge of running a city of that size and being successful at doing it. And I thought if I could do that, that's my college degree. And so that's when I told my wife why I wanted to do it. She goes, "You're not the person that wants it for the fame." I said, "No, I don't need the title, but I'm just telling you, I want to do it because I feel like I've never graduated from high school. This could be my college degree."
Yeah.
And so that's what I've done. And she supported me 100%. And it's been a great ride. In fact, awesome. I've got a rerun for re-election in November. And so,
how long are you gonna run, you think?
I'm probably gonna serve at least one more term.
Good.
We've got some great things planned for the city of Dallas.
You couldn't have picked a harder time to start too, right during COVID. I mean, that was like...
well, I tell you the thing before COVID was, make sure. I remember, I was appointed to be mayor in the beginning of March of, God, what year was it? Well, it was 23 right now, so it had been in 2019. March of 2019, I was appointed to be mayor in March. We left for a cruise the week after I was sworn in as mayor. That week later, when our boat docked in New Orleans, our boat was the last boat that was allowed to dock and let off because of the COVID-19 had set in, and they'd shut that's when they shut the whole country down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so I came home, and, you know, I've only been the mayor for a week, and the city shut down. Yep. And I'm thinking, what have I stepped off into? And then we started having, then there's the George Floyd incident, and then you had all of the rioting and protesting of what happened to George Floyd, and you think the city of Dallas, small suburb city of Atlanta, it ain't gonna have that much attention. But for 6 weeks straight, we had protests going on in the streets in downtown Dallas.
I remember.
And I remember thinking, what have I done? COVID, the whole city's shut down. They're having these protests. I mean, you got people that are throwing bricks through glass windows at businesses, and they're burning Atlanta down. And I remember in front of City Hall, we had the River Rock beds. You probably remember this, Rob, when you worked there. I remember having to have the city employees come and take up all the River Rock that we put in the plant beds.
Throw them through the windows, yeah.
So there wasn't, people throwing through the windows through all that. And so it was crazy.
Thinking, man, my wife was right. I shouldn't.
Or he was thinking about Kennesaw State.
It was one of those things. When you do things, you think, "Gosh, what have I done here?" Yeah. But you've made the decision, and you got to live with it. And I thought, well, you know what? I said I wanted to do it, and I signed up for it. So. It's one of those things you just got to stick it out. And what I've learned over my life is that life ain't ever easy. And if you want to accomplish something, you better dig your heels in. You better be willing to go to the distance. And sometimes you got to endure it, and it's a hard process. Sometimes people can do things and get lucky, and that success does not come without luck. But also, success does not come without failure.
That's right.
You've got to fail a lot in order to become successful, because it's your failures that help you become successful, because you learn from those mistakes, and you learn the different ways of doing things, the principles of things, and you apply those things to how you want to run your business, how you want to live your life. And then when you do things that way, if you do things the right way, good things happen.
That's exactly right.
Now, you still have you got to live with the choices that people are making around you. You can't control that, and you have to deal with it. But What you can control is yourself
Yes.
and the choices that you make. And I've learned that throughout my life, that you live by your choices, and you can choose to live a life a certain way, or you can live it a different way. But it's all about your choices you make.
And your effort in finishing
sir.
that
Yeah.
race.
You know, are you someone who likes to stay the course? Are you going to be a hard worker? Are you going to be disciplined? Are you going to be willing to get up early? Are you going to be willing to work late? Are you going to be willing to be faithful to your wife? You know, marriage is hard.
Yes.
You know, are you going to be willing to stay away from the temptations of the world? You know, I don't drink, smoke, or do anything of that. You know, and those are all temptations of the world. So there's choices you have to make every day in your life. But you know, as a missionary, choosing to live the lifestyle that I did as a missionary and to live a certain way, that has developed me and helped me to be the person where my values, my core values, the morale that I have, you know, again, I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, but because of those choices of how I want to live my life, it's allowed me to have the life that I have.
Yep.
And I'm thankful for it. And that's why I have a wonderful, beautiful wife. I have 3 wonderful, beautiful kids. I have a wonderful granddaughter, my first granddaughter now that's 3 months old. I mean, life
God's blessed you, man.
life's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
You know, it's not without trial,
Yeah.
but life is good.
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons. Like, I just thank you so much for sharing your story, because there's so many lessons that even hit me of, you know, just seeing when God gives you this vision, he doesn't necessarily tell you all the trials you're going to have to go through to get there. And if he did, you probably wouldn't do it. So I think what's so cool is seeing when you went on that mission trip, you were looking for that next step. And then for us to just get the, you know, we get to see the highlighted version of it.
right.
But I think it's so powerful, your message of just trusting God through all of it.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times you get out into it, and like you said, you're like, a lot of times where did you go, God? You just left me here. But sometimes he's just working on you to get you perfect. You know, it says trials work, perfect patience and tribulation, all this stuff. So
First, you must have faith. And it's after your trial of your faith comes the blessing.
Amen.
So, you know, when Moses split the Red Sea, he wasn't standing on the shoreline and the Red Sea split and then he took all the Israelites through. He had to actually enter the water and give his faith that he knew the Lord would split the Red Sea. And so I've always, you know, as you read the scriptures and you learn all these things spiritually, it's you have to apply your faith first before the Lord gives you the blessing.
yes.
Amen.
And so as I've lived my life, I've seen that. And sometimes I've not made the right choice and I've suffered the consequences. But I feel for the most part, I've done a pretty good job at making the right choice, and the Lord has blessed me beyond measure. And I have a wonderful family, a wonderful life. And, you know, perception is a real thing, but it can also be, you know, it can look one way, but it's really another way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I deal with that a lot because of the success that I have. You know, a lot of people think I inherited everything that I've got. Well, no, I've worked my tail off everything that I've got. Now, I grew up with a great family. I grew up in a great home with a mom and dad that was there every day for me, you know, that taught me values. You know, I was brought up and taught of, you know, a faith with my church and religion, you know, and that proved to be a huge turning point in my life. You know, so there's been things that have helped me become the person that I am, you know, and it's been through a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and not just on my behalf. I mean, I like I said, I got a great family, I got great siblings, I got a great support group around me. And as we were talking about earlier, you are what you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that. And so every day I just try to surround myself with people I like to be with. You know, even at work, at Kelly Landscapes, we have core values.
Yeah.
You know, we don't just hire everybody that walks through the door. If you can't go past our interviews and have those core values that we live by, then we don't want you working at Kelly Landscapes.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so it is at home with me and my wife when we go out at night with our friends, you know. And not to be judgmental, but it's just choices that you make of how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, we love the choices you've made because they help us.
They
with
inspire us,
the
man.
mentorship that we were able to gain, and then also, you know, just being in the city of Dallas, man.
Yeah.
And we're thankful to have you. The last thing I'll say is that, like you keep saying, you know, I made these choices and I have this beautiful family and this wonderful life. Well, I can hear it in your voice. What's important, man? It's that family. It's that life. It's the way you get to live. These are the important things, not, your health, things like that.
Yeah.
Not, did I wake up and get to hang out with Dwayne The Rock Johnson today?
Yeah. Do I have the coolest house in Dallas? Well, yeah, you do have
Well,
that.
actually, you do, but Dallas Nebo ain't that bad. But yeah, it's the family. It's these things you're talking about that is the most important. So, dude, just thank you for sharing.
Well,
that.
I appreciate you bringing that up because, and I will attest to what you say there. I mean, we can look at all the worldly material, the worldly things in our lives, and we have to work.
Yeah.
And as people, we want to be successful. And when we do something, if you're like me, I want to do it the best I can, and I want to be successful at it. And when you do things like that, then you are successful. And I believe the Lord wants you to be successful. Yeah. But He's going to teach you some lessons along the way too. But at the end of the day, it ain't about the materialistic things you have around you. Mm-hmm. It's about your family. It's the people in your life that make you who you are. And I've always believed that. And I've got great people in my life that help me be the person I am. I mean, starting with my wife, my kids, my brothers and sisters. My dad's passed. He's been passed now for 27, 28 years, and I still have my mom. I mean, I got my friends from church and my friends in the community, my council that I serve with. I am surrounded by wonderful people who make my life a wonderful place to live every day. And so those are the things that are important. And those are the things that you'll take with you to the next life. I just had a real good friend of mine pass away last week, and it was real sudden and real quick. And when you have those experiences, it changes you.
Yes, sir.
It really helps you put things in perspective. I lost my dad when I was 27 years old to a massive heart attack. And I remember when that happened, it really puts things in perspective. You realize, hey, what's important? It ain't the car you're driving or the house you're living in, but it's, do I have a great relationship with my dad? Do I have a good relationship with my siblings? Do I have a great wife, a good family? It's the people in your life that's important. The materialistic things, yeah, they're enjoyable, they're fun, but they're temporary. You're not taking any of it with you.
No.
We work hard for it, and I think those who work hard for it, they deserve it, but it ain't what's important.
That's right.
It ain't, at the end of the day, it ain't why I work hard.
Amen.
At the end of the day, it's about my family and the people around me.
I think we should end on that.
That's good stuff, man. Thank you
Well,
so
I
much.
appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me to come. Hope I haven't wasted any of y'all's time.
James, you just mentored a bunch of people, and I appreciate that so much.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, James.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man.